Hey there, everybody. Thanks for joining me for another one-man review. Today I'm going to continue on with my analysis of Dan Clowes' the complete 8-ball. So I've been going through these one issue at a time. This is a really cool collection that just came out from Fantagraphics that has all of the issues in kind of a facsimile edition, which you'll see as I flip through this. And I've read some of the collections of these things, like the Dan Pussy story and Ghost World Art School Confidential, but I've never read the actual original 8-balls with all the little short stories that are in them. So I'm going through and enjoying seeing this blast from the past. It's definitely an early 90s book, hardcore. And then Dan Clowes' art's just wonderful always. So that's been fun to glass my eyes over and just stare at the beautiful art. The cover really, to me, these two images really look like Gilbert Hernandez Love and Rockets type of stuff. The coloring, the art, the little marks that he makes. That's an influence that I've noted pretty much in every video, probably, and I continue to see it being an influence here. On the inside front cover, we get kind of the standard by now little format where there's a question and then there's a bunch of people answering it. This is written by David Greenberger from Duplex Planet number 57, and then they've got subscriptions. So I don't know what that was. If anyone knows what Duplex Planet was, I'd be curious. But I like this one. This is my favorite of these question and answer formats so far because it says, where do wise guys come from? And then this guy right here says, a mother's womb. Every human being is originally from a mother's womb. So he's the wise guy in the bunch. I like that. Then we're back to Like a Velvet Glove, Cast in Iron. By this point, I'm getting pretty tired of the story. I know the main character is supposedly looking for like an actress, if I remember correct, from issue one. But the story structure, yeah, I think he's chasing after this actress from this movie. But the story by this point has just devolved into making it up panel by panel, David Lynch, surrealist. Yeah, that's where I get the Gilbert Hernandez vibes as well. That impression that things are being made up page by page or panel by panel, for the surreal flow of mind type of writing. So it's definitely good for mood and ambiance, but I'm just not invested in the story at this point. I'm interested in the art. The art to me, it's kind of like Jaime Hernandez drawing a Gilbert Hernandez story with a little bit of Charles Burns thrown in there stylistically. I think that's like the three things I'm seeing the most. So I like that. It's a great look. Here, I don't know that this was intentional by Clowes, but I think this is a fun, happy accident. If not, if it's intentional, it's pretty clever. But there's this implied tangent here where the outside, he's pinching a testosterone bottle that he's going to shoot himself up with, and the outside of his index finger lines up with this side of the thumb, and the outside of his thumb lines up here. So at first glance, this almost looked like he was grabbing his member here, and it was showing up in the other panel. So I don't know if that was intentional, but it's a good idea for a trick, anyways. I think the thing that's most effective about this, like a velvet glove cast in iron, is just the sense of ambiance, and I think that's the place, space, character, all that kind of visceral stuff is what Clowes is really, really good at. Like here, the main character is going in and he's trying to buy some binoculars or a camera so he can spy on somebody. And this store clerk is sick or has allergies or something, and it's just an absolute disgusting coughing mess. That would drive me crazy. I need to get out of that store so quick and so bad. And then now, especially at post COVID, this is like extra, like, get me out of here. So that's good. I think he's able to impart those kind of visual responses very well. Here we have the letter pages in the middle of the book. Two names that I noticed that stood out. Here you have, well, actually three. You have David Greenberger telling him that 8-ball is so cool, even though he's on the inside of it. Julie Doucette here, and then Terry Moore. I don't know if that's Strangers in Paradise Terry Moore, but it's fun to notice some of the names, people who were fans of this book when it's coming out. Then you go to what I assume is part of the Dan Pussy, like if you got it in collection, this is the Dr. Infinity story. But like with the rest of the Dan Pussy stories, this is just a takedown of the history of the comics industry. I can imagine at the time in the early 90s, like this was a pretty wild thing, like Clowes out there going after basically Stan Lee and any kind of businessman who had profited off of other comic artists. I think now in like the 2020s, this is just like, yeah, we all know this. We have all heard it. But I can imagine at the time it was pretty intense. And I have to wonder how much of this is like rumors that he's heard, because there's a scene here where like the Stan Lee like character is telling this inker like, hey, you missed a deadline, so I took you off this awesome book that you were on, but if you want the shittier book that I'm willing to throw your way, you're gonna have to kiss my feet in front of the office. And he does it. That seems like something, a story that probably got passed around. So this is necessary stuff, but it's just, this is my general impression of 8 Ball all along, is it was super necessary that this happened, and it's extremely well done, but it just doesn't hold up over time, because like once this happens, once this is out, once this conversation is happening, and once 80 other people have done this, it's just not as, it's not as impactful as it was. But that doesn't take away from my understanding of like, well, when you're the first one or one of the first ones that does it, and when you do it so well, it's obviously to be respected and held up in high regard. So that's what I take away from it. But like this inside baseball about the industry stuff, it's like this is the exact time when we're trying to grow comics out in the early 90s, you know, riding the wave of like 85, 86. Comics aren't for kids anymore. And instead of expanding out, like stuff like this just shrinks it further and further and further. And I can imagine people who hadn't read comics coming in, and it's just so insider baseball. But I don't know, maybe that's cool to people from outside the industry. I'm not sure. But that's how I feel. It's like at the exact moment when you should be expanding out and doing something other than talking about comics, you're just talking about comics more and more and more. Like, make your comics about something else. And then you get it's not like a feature in the book, but it seems at this point that every book has one short story where Clowes is just mapping his own mental issues onto the world and throwing everyone into like some kind of cartoonist category, and they're always like despicable categories, and then he's gonna make fun of himself for being a piece of shit at the end of it. So it's got like this Gen X irony to it as well, which again at the time I'm sure felt very cool, but now it feels quite a bit dated. And as I've said before, this is like listening to the worst part of my own brain, the part of me that's there running doing this kind of thing, but the part that I know is bad, and so it's just hard. I don't really like it. I don't enjoy it. I'm sure there's plenty of people who have read this kind of stuff and been like, yeah, get him, throw everyone under the bus. But he's just like sat in a subway imagining if he was marooned on an island with all these people and just assuming the worst about them. That's what I don't like about it. It's that part of me that it instead of being forgiving to someone, just is grumpy and assumes the worst. It's like me on my worst days. So right here he's seeing this guy who, actually, they'd be better for, or he said these girls over here, they'd be better for this Jim Belushi type over here. God, I hate guys like him. What a typical beer drinking, clock punching, WLUP listening, I'm just a regular guy, deep dish pizza eating, Chicago style Cubs fan asshole. I'd like to see him on a desert island. He'd probably sell CD players. So it's like, this dude's just a normal dude doing his normal dude thing, and Clowes is sitting over here like a grumpy piece of shit judging him. I think I'd rather be that guy, honestly, but I'm closer to this, and that's probably why these stories distress me. And then he's sitting there thinking, I'm only the smartest person on this train, or I'm the smartest person on this train, only I don't have any useful knowledge at all. So he's talking about being on a desert island with all those people. I wouldn't have any useless knowledge. We'd starve to death if I was in charge. And it's like, dude, you're not the smartest guy in the room. But I identify with that, too. There's been plenty of times where I just feel like people don't get what I'm talking about, you know, like it's too long in philosophy and stuff. But I don't think I'm the smartest guy in the room. I realize exactly like he does that it's useless knowledge. It was a stupid thing to spend a lot of my time on. Society just tends to think it's smart. And then at the end of it all, he basically walks away and says if future historians would find them, everyone on the island, and be able to figure out a lot of things about our lives, and I wouldn't have been totally useless. But it's like this self-critique about, look, I may be super smart, like naturally smart, but I'm kind of just a loser sitting on a train complaining about everything. And that's where the ironic self-reflection comes in, that's supposedly like a pass on his assholishness. But he's played that trick over and over and over again, I feel like. And then it's like, I don't know, it doesn't work on the sixth time that you're like, yeah, I'm an asshole, but, you know, at least I know I'm an asshole. I don't know, you're still just an asshole, buddy. So it's not a feature, but this tendency always gets me with 8-Ball, and it honestly has me hesitant to keep going, but I'm going to keep going. It's just like, I know I'm in for more of this. Throughout this as well, you see a lot of moments that I feel like he's really looking. This is like his Gilbert Hernandez moments here. And I really feel like some of the cartooning here is very Gilbert Hernandez as well. So that must have been a major influence on him. I'm seeing it even more now because I've got basically the complete first 50 of Love and Rockets, and I'm also reading those one issue at a time and checking those out. And it's really obvious to me the connection between the two, that needed to happen for this to happen. So anyways, that's issue 6. For as much as I'm griping, I am enjoying it. I guess I'm doing the Clowes thing. I'm griping, but I'm saying I'm enjoying it. So I don't know. Maybe it's just too close to my own the dark parts of my own personality. But we'll keep reading it. Oh, look, here we have our Chicago guy. Maybe he shows back up again. That's interesting in issue 7. Okay, that's our. Well, I'm curious about that. I'm curious to see where this dude goes from here. Is that the same dude? Looks pretty similar. Anyways, thanks for following along for this. If you enjoy what we're doing here on the channel, the best way to support us is through our Patreon. We have a couple different tiers there with a couple different things you get, polls that you can take part in, contests you can win. We appreciate that. That money helps us get the books that we review. And then the best thing to do is to support what Sean's doing with Living the Line books. So here we'll take a look at some of the books that Sean is putting out. Solid Yellow, Path of the Shades by Clarence Doss is a really cool ongoing project that Living the Line will be producing. Clarence is a PhD student from Fiji who's studying the myths of Fiji for his doctoral thesis. And part of that study project is that he's producing these comics. They're kind of like Hellboy, where there's these little short stories that capture all of these different mythologies. But then he's using that to wrap the project into his doctoral thesis, and then provide educational material where people can come to these comics. You know, they don't have to read his PhD thesis. They can come to the comics and get a more consumable version of the mythology of Fiji. House on Fire by Matt Battaglia is a just gorgeous book where Matt's kind of making an emotional response to the years of COVID and wrapping that into a sci-fi dystopian future that really the sci-fi dystopian's backgrounded, and you're focused on the emotional journey of two characters in a really beautiful way. And then that's enhanced by Matt's really awesome, loose, kind of Paul Popish dry brush work. And then Sean and Matt have worked to get this second kind of orange spot color in there that's going to look really, really beautiful, and has allowed Matt to use his dry brush technique to add tone to the thing too. So with Sean's production technique, this is going to be a gorgeous book with a lot of heart. Thanks for following along. Take it away, Jack.
You want to see all these books? Smash that subscribe button and the like button and the bell, and then you get them.